Gospel of Matthew chapter 14. Welcome back to Bible Breakdowns Daily. Matthew chapter 14 is a chapter of heartbreak and miracles, fear and faith. It begins in a palace filled with corruption and ends on a stormy sea where Jesus reveals his divine power like never before. Let's walk through it. Herod the Tetrarch hears about everything Jesus is doing, the miracles, the crowds, the authority, and he becomes afraid. His conscience begins to haunt him. He tells those around him, "This is John the Baptist. He has risen from the dead, and that is why miraculous powers are at work in him." Matthew then pauses to explain how John's death happened. Herod had arrested John and put him in prison because John boldly told him, "It is not lawful for you to have Herodias," who was his brother's wife. Herod wanted to kill John, but he feared the crowds because they saw John as a prophet. But during Herod's birthday banquet, Herodias' daughter danced before the guests, and Herod was so pleased that he made a reckless oath to give her whatever she asked. Taught by her mother, she said, "Give me here on a platter the head of John the Baptist." Herod was grieved, but because of his oath and because the guests were watching, he ordered it to be done. John was beheaded in the prison. His head was brought on a platter and given to the girl, and the girl carried it to her mother. John's disciples came, took his body, buried it, and then went and told Jesus. When Jesus hears the news, his heart breaks. John was his forerunner, his relative, his faithful servant. Jesus withdraws by boat to a quiet and deserted place, seeking to be alone, seeking space to grieve and to pray. But the crowds see the direction of his boat and run along the shore, traveling through villages, hurrying around the lake to meet him on the other side. By the time Jesus arrives at the quiet place, the people are already there, waiting for him. Even in his grief, Jesus looks at them and is moved with deep compassion. He begins healing their sick, staying with them for hours as daylight fades. As evening approaches, the disciples come to him and say, "This is a remote place and it's already late. Send the crowds away so they can go to the villages and buy food." But Jesus answers, "They do not need to go away. You give them something to eat." They look at him confused. "We have only 5 loaves and 2 fish. Jesus says, "Bring them here to me." He has the crowd sit down on the grass. Then he takes the 5 loaves and the 2 fish, looks up to heaven, gives thanks, breaks the bread, and hands it to the disciples, who distribute it to the people. The miracle unfolds in their hands. Everyone eats until they are satisfied. When the disciples collect the leftovers, they fill 12 baskets. Around 5,000 men were fed that day, not counting the women and children. Immediately after this, Jesus sends his disciples into the boat to go ahead of him to the other side while he dismisses the crowds. After the people leave, Jesus finally climbs the mountain by himself to pray. The sun sets, night falls, and Jesus remains alone with the Father. Meanwhile, the disciples' boat is far out on the lake, struggling against strong winds and rough waves. The storm is fierce, and the night is long. In the darkest hours before dawn, Jesus comes toward them, walking on the water. When the disciples see a figure moving across the waves, they panic. "It's a ghost," they cry out, filled with fear. But Jesus immediately speaks to them. "Take courage, it is I. Do not be afraid." Peter calls out, "Lord, if it is you, tell me to come to you on the water." Jesus says, "Come." Peter steps out of the boat. His feet touch the impossible. He is walking on water toward Jesus. But as the wind roars and the waves rise around him, fear slips into his heart. He begins to sink and cries out, "Lord, save me." Jesus reaches out his hand at once, catches him and says, "You of little faith, why did you doubt?" They climb into the boat together, and immediately the wind stops. The storm is silenced. In awe, the disciples worship Jesus, saying, "Truly, you are the Son of God." When they reach the other side, in the region of Gennesaret, the people there recognize Jesus and send word throughout the whole area. Crowds gather again, bringing all their sick. Many beg just to touch the edge of his cloak, and everyone who touches him is healed. The chapter closes with a surge of miracles, showing that no storm, no sickness, and no darkness is too strong for Jesus. Lesson and reflection. Matthew chapter 14 reveals the depth of Jesus' compassion even in the middle of his grief. After hearing of John's death, Jesus seeks solitude, yet when desperate people find him, he responds with love instead of turning them away. This shows a Savior whose heart breaks with ours, but still reaches out to heal and restore. The feeding of the 5,000 reminds us that what we place in Jesus' hands becomes more than enough. The disciples saw scarcity. Jesus saw possibility. Our little becomes abundance when surrendered to him. Peter, walking on water, teaches that miracles happen when our eyes are fixed on Jesus. As long as Peter looked at him, he stood on the impossible. Fear only entered when he focused on the storm. Still, even when faith failed, Jesus rescued him instantly. His grace is faster than our fear. The chapter ends with crowds touching Jesus' garment and being healed, showing the sheer power of his presence and his willingness to heal all who come to him. That's Matthew chapter 14, a chapter of sorrow, compassion, miraculous provision, and breathtaking power. Next time, in Matthew chapter 15, Jesus confronts tradition that replaces God's truth, heals a Gentile woman's daughter, and feeds another massive crowd of 4,000.